So this regular meeting of the council will come to order. And please take a silent roll call. We're all in attendance. And Denise Coulter, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed hereunder are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Item number 1, approval of the July 1st, 2025 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of the check register report, July 2025. Item 3, proclamation in support of Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, September 2025. Any of the council members wish to pull an item off the consent agenda? So hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Item number 4 is current events. So the first item that's kind of interesting is we now have a timer for speaking at call to the public and public comment. And the reason why we have that, okay, Anna White, thank you, is because sometimes when we do it on the phone, sometimes we may be short to 3 minutes, sometimes we may be long in the 3 minutes. So let's just make sure you can see it so you have an idea where you stand instead of just waiting for a buzzer. And it'll count down from 3 to 0, and then it'll make some audible sound, and you can see it. And so if anyone has suggestions about how this can be done better, where we can place it so it makes more sense for you, please let me know. So I go to meetings at the school board, at MAG meetings, other government bodies. They have timers somehow, right? Some are in your face, some are obnoxious. So I thought this is relatively benign, serves the purpose, so you can see it. I'm running along, or I'm going to be done in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you can just talk some more. So anyway, I think it's a good thing, and I'm certainly open to suggestions on how to improve it. Next item on current events, community conversations. So August 8th is coming Friday, 9 to 11. So council members Colleen Skirty and Clint Miller will join me in the pavilion, so we'll be outside at the farmer's market. So a little warm, but come on by. We'd love to see you, and it's always just a great environment to talk to one another. On August 18th, here in the town council chambers, the town is going to put on an open house to talk about what to do, if anything, with the town hall building, right? So we've talked about repurposing that property. How does this work? So we want public input on that. So the EDAB, the Economic Development Advisory Board, has talked about this several times. So we created a different venue, a different scenario. We can come in and talk and ask questions, and just let us know what you think. And I think Steve Popelpink will probably talk about that more tonight during his presentation. If you've been watching, we've made a big push for lock boxes and FireWise and CPR classes. So this is just a great thing, if you ask me. It's just very good. So in the month of July, we handed out, our Rural Metro firefighters installed 13 lock boxes. That's a number for us. And we're buying more because we're depleting the supply. And that's how it's supposed to work, right? It keeps people safe. Our next CPR class will be in the evening, trying something different. August 13th in the firehouse. So for those who work, have other daytime commitments, August 13th, 6 p.m. in the firehouse. And one other thing we're doing, and we'll publicize it come probably the end of August, working with the Foothills Caring Corps, a fall prevention workshop. So the idea is to give people some skills and know-how so they're less likely to fall. Because that's probably the the most medical, one, we get more medical calls than anything else in our town by maybe 90%, and majority of those are folks falling. So this is a good thing. It's good for you. And that's my current events. Anyone have anything to add? So hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5, approval for Thunderbird Artist Festival Season 2025-26, road closures on November 6 through 9, 2025, January 15 to 18, 2026, and March 26, 29, 2026. So Madison, I'm happy to lead this, or you're welcome to come up. Okay. So what we have here in front of us is the same road closures that we've used for quite some time. And this is up for approval tonight by the town council. And a couple of things I'd like to add. One, going into this season, we have changed, we have a relationship with Thunderbird Artists. It goes back 31 years. They've been a great partner with the town. It's a fantastic partner. 32 years. 33. Okay, do I hear 34? And it's been a great relationship. And through that time, you know, there's give and take, right? We've tried to help them with things that are challenges they have, and they help us with challenges that we have. And most recently, as we go into the new year, they've worked with us to revise the fee structure. So the fee structure is not so dependent on gate receipts. It's a fixed number. What does that mean? So if it's an unpleasant day, a rainy day, or maybe the marketing hasn't been successful as they would like, gate receipts are down, we're still made whole. So it's a good thing for us. That's really a good thing for us. So we have on our agenda 3 dates here coming up in the next season. Looking ahead to the following year, this would be like November 26, 2026, and then January and March in 27. They've agreed to take a look at one of those dates, and that would be the November date, November of 26, and looking for another venue. So that means if they're successful, in the next season we will have 2 Thunderbird dates. So why is that? Well, one, we hear some folks think, maybe this has run its course. They think, well, maybe we have enough people coming into the town as it is. What we want to do is come up with a way to put our toe in the water. So we say if they're successful finding a new venue for November 26, we'll be able to gauge public feedback, what they think of that, what the merchants thought of that. And it's like a lot of things. We talk about it, we make drawings, we have stakeholder meetings, but it really doesn't matter until you do it. And so we'll do this, well, in a way, we will eliminate one of the programs in November 26th, that weekend, and just judge public reaction and business reaction, and just go from there. So Thunderbird artist Denise has been just fantastic to work with, so thank you very much for all of that. And you're invited to come up if you wish to say anything. Okay, no need to. So any other comments or questions from the council before I open it up to public comment?
Well, I just would like to say that I've enjoyed going to these events over the years, and I think any activity that's going on in the center of town is good. I think it promotes Carefree. It brings people from Scottsdale, from all over the valley. So I just would like to see it continue. And I do enjoy a glass of wine and looking at the artists. So thank you.
Yeah, it's certainly a fun experience for sure. So before we vote, I'd open up the public comment. Do we have any public comment slips? Kristen?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Okay, we'll close public comment. So I would entertain a vote I would entertain a motion to approve the street closure map as presented in the packet for November 6th, January 15th, and March 26th for the next Thunderbird artist season.
I'll make that motion that we have road closures for the Thunderbird artists November 6th through 9th, January 15th through 18th, March 26th through the 29th. And, yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay,
I second.
okay, very good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Denise. Thanks for coming out here tonight. Okay, that closes item number 5. Item 6, request for approval to purchase Recite Me Accessibility Checker software at an annual cost of $2,500 to assess and address ADA compliance on carefree.org and visit carefree.com. Madison, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, Mayor and Council. I am presenting on the ADA compliance software report. Thank you. I previously reported on this and asked, I believe it was just on the consent agenda, and it was just asking for funding to buy Recite Me, which is an ADA compliance software, which helps us check basically every single page, every single element on a page to make sure it is ADA compliant for people with disabilities, whether that's visual, hearing, like physical disabilities as well, with keyboards as well, so making sure buttons move through if they can't type. Or use a mouse. And I am back here because a council member had some questions on pricing and seeing if there were any other options out there. So I am here representing, I'm here actually presenting all my findings on different softwares that I looked at through after that. So just a little bit of baseline on why I came forward with this. So the Department of Justice updated the regulations for Title II for the ADA compliance, and they changed the web content accessibility guidelines, which makes it required for state and local governments to have level AA is the technical standard for us. If we don't meet that, we could get in trouble, essentially. And the WCAG Web Content Accessibility Guidelines is a set of guidelines that was made by the World Wide Web Consortium, and we are just supposed to follow these rules to make sure that everything that we have online is accessible to everyone in the public and easily accessible as well. I also have the deadlines. We are a bit ahead of time because we're under 50,000 people. Our compliance date would be April 26, 2027, but I like to get ahead. This gives me time to ensure that every single page is compliant, making sure that I'm able to maintain it correctly and that no issues pop up along the way. So I'm going to go into Recite Me was one of the first ones I looked at, and their prices has stayed the same despite it's been a few months since I've reported on this. Their prices stayed the same. It's a $2,000 base fee with $500 for an additional website. I plan on adding on our Visit Carefree website since that is technically still it's managed by us. I want to make sure that that's ADA compliant as well. The platform is very user-friendly. It can scan PDFs on our pages but not optimize them. It can't go through and like edit them or make them readable, but it can tell me when they are or they are not. It has AI quick fixes, so if there's something that like a button just needs to be labeled differently, I can easily click and do that and it'll do it for me. They also have a toolbar integration that I would like to look at possibly integrating in later. It's a different charge. It's the same amount. But it has different capabilities for people with blindness, ADHD, color blindness, and such. But it's not necessarily the priority right now. Priority is making sure that we're ADA compliant. The communication with them is very responsive. We would have a dedicated team success manager, so someone I could reach out to if we have any issues. Some customers in Arizona was the Humane Society of Sedona, and then another town that they shared with me was the town of Randolph, Massachusetts. And a second option I looked into, because I went through all of them, or as many as I could find that were reputable and that had other governments that had worked with them or big, large name brands, was Accessiby. This one is slightly more expensive. It would be about $1,500 a month. $1,500 a month or a year for the website, and then it would be another $1,500 for the Carefree website. There's no discount for adding on a second one. This is not necessarily a software checker. Once I got into it and did more research with them and had a demo with them, it's more of an accessibility widget. It's not a scanner. It would be put into our code. It would rescan every 24 hours. It would fix compliance issues. It's limited to 30,000 website visits a month, but that's not an issue for us. That's about how many we've hit in a year. And reporting documentation is included. Actually, all of these have reporting and documentation, so we can provide documentation and reports on our ADA compliance if somebody ever asks. There are add-ons like Pledge and Case Manager for litigation support. I don't foresee us needing that. They have a separate service to scan and optimize PDFs, and that would be an extra charge. They are responsive. There's an up to 2-day response from support. Some big customer name brands that they work with are General Electric and Nintendo. The third option I look at was Accessibility Checker. This was brought to me by a council member. I looked into them. At the time when I looked into them, their price was cheaper. It has since gone up exponentially. It's about $4,000 a year instead of $15,000. So it went from a yearly price to a monthly, so it's $250 monthly, plus another $100 for an additional website. It's more similar to ReciteMe than it is Accessibility. It's an easy platform. Fixes all the compliance issues that we would need. It's a simple software. It scans every 7 days. There's a 500 URL scan limit. I don't foresee us exceeding that. If we do, we would have to upgrade. There's reporting documentation. It doesn't scan PDFs just like the others. I will say communication with them was a bit low. There was a large time difference, probably about 12-hour time difference. So while I was trying to schedule a 9 a.m. meeting with them, they sent me something for 9 p.m. They do have customers in the state. Mojave County works with them. I reached out to them and asked them if they were, how successful they were to work with. They just kind of gave me, they're good to work with. They meet our compliance. And then they also work with the Louisiana state government. They did not respond to me. But the price puts them lower on my list, especially because of the volatility of the price. It's only been a few months since it's changed so much. The last person I looked at was AudioEye. This one is used by quite a few different governments. It is provided through Civic Plus, which is a website provider. If we were to pay for them regularly without Civic Plus, it's about $10,000 a year. It's more comparable if we had a Civic Plus website. We do not, so they were great to work with. They basically said, hey, it's not worth it for you to continue forward for $10,000. But it is something I would be willing to look into, especially since our contract with our website provider is up in about a year. But maybe looking into see if there is a bundle option we could do that would kind of push all of this together, and something that would also work well with our website. But at this time, that's not what I'm looking for. I made a little comparison chart. Price, Accessibility, and ReciteMe were right there kind of with each other. Accessibility Checker, I'm not feeling good about it. AudioEye, 10K is definitely out of the range of what I was looking for. Accessibility Checker, and ReciteMe were the features I was looking for. Accessibility and AudioEye were not, but I didn't continue with AudioEye when I talked with them. ReciteMe has the ability to scan the PDFs, just not optimize them, so it's a give or take there. And then they all have reporting. ReciteMe and Accessibility were very good with communication. Accessibility Checker was not. ReciteMe met all my criteria, and I'd like to move forward with them. So I recommend we enter into a year-long contract with them for the price of $2,500. We could decide now if we would like to add the toolbar, but I don't think it's a necessity right now. It would be $5,000 total if we did move forward. Over the next year, I will use the checker to achieve and maintain our level AA ADA compliance, and then later in the year, I plan on doing some more research with Civic Plus and seeing if there's a way to maybe consolidate some of our website services and ADA compliance together. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, well, thanks for all that research. You did a ton of work there, so much appreciated. I think the conclusions are pretty clear in terms of cost and performance. But I will open up the questions from the council.
Sorry.
Celine.
So just a quick question, and you kind of touched on it, so I think I know the answer. So if you go with the one that you would like to go with, it's an annual thing. So you would go with them for a year, do it, test it, everything's great. If you found after getting a quote from Civic Plus later in the year, then that would really just be a matter of, okay, now we're going to, if you found that it was good, change to go to that site. But then again, the websites, you would tie all that in, correct?
Yes, exactly. So I would go with or Recite Me Now, and it's only a year-long contract. We have a year left out of our 2-year contract with our current website provider. Before all that's up, I would like to talk with Civic Plus about their website services, get a quote on what their website is, see if it's comparable to what we're paying now for the services and all of the CMS that I use as well for documents on the back end. But I would do that along with seeing if the ADA compliant software that comes with it, the Audio Eye, is suitable, and then see like where we are price range altogether with our website and if we were to pay for this as well.
Okay, thank you.
So would that supersede the Recite Me?
Yes, so if I found that using Audio Eye and Civic Plus together were comparable and maybe had more features or less features but were cheaper, I would figure out which one is better to go with, and then I would either go with Audio Eye and Civic Plus together as kind of a combined, or I would continue with our website provider and continue with Recite Me for another year.
So if you found this out 6 months into the year, can you get out of Recite Me, or it's?
We're contracted for the year, but timing-wise, I think it would time out just fine when our website contract comes up. This one will kind of start to expire as well.
Okay, thanks.
Miller.
I think it's a no-brainer to proceed with it, but I do have a question. What does a page look like that is non-conforming to ADA?
So I will say it's almost invisible to us, because for people that are able to use buttons, people that are able to type, scroll, there's some people who can't use a mouse and they have to use only a keyboard and they have to press a button. If they press a button or tab, it can take them to all these different, like it takes you from all the different elements on a web page. And you can do it for yourself now, but sometimes it'll skip elements if they're not correctly coded. So it'll skip a text, it won't read it out. Sometimes page readers as well, if it's not coded correctly, or sometimes for people with color blindness, if it's like the contrast isn't correct and they can't really read it very well, it makes it a lot harder for them to use our page and effectively find information that they need to find.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from the council? So hearing none, I would open up to public comment. Do we have any comments? Kristen? So no public comments. We'll close public comment. And I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase of Recite Me accessibility checker software at an annual cost of $2,500 to assess and address ADA compliance on carefree.org and visit carefree.com.
I'd make that motion.
Second?
Okay, any other comments from council before we vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Addison, thank you. Item number 7, review, discussion, and possible action regarding a proposed amendment to the Carefree Arizona Code of Ordinances, the Town Code. This amendment seeks to regulate construction hours during the summer to reduce heat-related risks. This is the second of 2 required ordinance readings. Stacy, please take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of Town Council. As we discussed last month, this is an amendment to our town code, and in our town code, it does require these 2 separate meetings. Our first meeting is typically for discussion, and then the second meeting, which is tonight, is actually the public hearing where an action will be required. So what we discussed at the first meeting was the reason we have to update our town code essentially is because it's what state law has enacted, and we need to comply with that state law today. It actually was an emergency measure, so we need to incorporate that. It was basically founded to protect construction workers from the summer heat, and I can tell you we have a lot of work that happens in Carefree during the summertime, so I think beneficial for our community. What the proposal does is it breaks out basically the construction hours into 2 categories. There's a category for summer months, which allows for earlier times, and winter months, which allows for earlier time when you're doing a concrete pour. So again, this is being the second of 2 required readings. Mayor, this is a public hearing, and so hopefully at the end of that public hearing, you will look to find an action for this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any comments or questions from the council? So hearing none, we'll open up a public hearing. We have any requests to speak? So hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion to approve this amendment to the Carefree Arizona Code of Ordinances. This amendment seeks to regulate construction hours during the summer to reduce heat-related risks. Can I have a motion?
A motion to approve the proposed amendment seeking to regulate the construction hours during the summer to reduce heat-related risks.
We have a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, good job. Agenda item number 8, economic development update.
I think.
And Mr. Propopek, are you going to lead this off?
Mayor, Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come in and talk to you about what's going on in economic development. I think it's been a while since we did the update, when we went through the budget process, and so just wanted to provide both the council and the community where we stand on certain things, specifically to, I know people have interest in the northeast corner, which is the Carefree Corridor, as well as some of the other things that we've been working on as part of the council strategic plan. As always, I like to start a little bit because not everybody understands what economic development is. There's new people, just a little education on what guides economic development in the community, where the vision comes from, the documents we reference, and the processes that we use. Everything really kind of stems from the general plan, and from that we have the Village Center Redevelopment Plan, which originally was the Village Center Master Plan created back in 2015. We updated that in 2021-22. And then we have the Town Council Strategic Plan. And inside of these, the visions for what the council and the leadership and the stakeholders within the community create are what guide what we do. It also has the goals, the objectives, and from those goals and objectives, there's usually implementation strategies built inside of these documents. And my job, and working with the rest of my colleagues in the community, as well as other council members, is to be able to implement those things that are outlined inside of these plans. We try to do this in a very transparent and open manner, and involving a lot of people in the community. Particularly, we have the Economic Development Advisory Board, where we meet for the most part on a monthly basis. That board deals almost specifically with the Town Council Strategic Plan and some of the legacy things that were in the original work plans from the original Town Council Strategic Plan. And so we have a calendar and an agenda, and then a specific work plan just for that Economic Development Advisory Board, talking about milestones and timeframes and all the things that need to happen for us to accomplish that within the calendar year, or the fiscal year. We also use the Planning and Zoning Commission, which Planning and Zoning Commissions oversee the redevelopment plan. And so as we look to do things that are inside the redevelopment plan, the Planning and Zoning Commission would be dealing with that. And then, of course, council usually is involved on the back end of all the decisions that get made. Just want to make it clear that the Economic Development Advisory Board is not a board that makes decisions. It's a recommending body to the Town Council and or the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yeah, I always talk about what economic development is and what the program is built around. You guys have heard me so many times talk about the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, position, and so what I wanted to do is actually one of the Economic Development Advisory Board members provided this list of things that kind of define what economic development is for a small town. And so I wanted to kind of build it inside of this list of, and this is really does hit on all the things that we work on. One is leveraging assets. That means we're working with property owners. We're working with our own town assets, our town hall site, for example, that we're going to be looking at. Maximizing the gardens and the pavilions, and capitalizing on our market position, our market competitiveness, and everything else. And there's also, I'd like to say, that's the resources we have and the human resources, working with each of the town staff members. We work with communications, we work with planning, all of these things to be able to maximize. We're all involved in economic development. And that includes council, and I appreciate all the council members who have been involved in being able to You know, Cheryl has been working on a lot of the marketing stuff over the years. Clint's helped with a lot of the stuff in the town center. We're working on the retail. We're working on now some of the business attraction side of things, and just being able to evaluate and analyze. I think one of the things that in this community that I heard loud and clear was we have so much expertise in the community. Let's make sure that we're tapping that. Cultivating business, you know, this is the other part of it. We worked on Third Thursday Art Nights. We do merchant meetings, created the visitor center. One of the things that the businesses wanted was better signage into the community. We worked on that, implementing the facade program, position planning. Again, investing in infrastructure and amenities. I think that's one of the things that we've been working on, and particularly we're working through the circulation and parking plan. That's something a lot of property owners brought up, and businesses, as well as the council. And one of the things we've recently been focusing on is how to best look at a real estate strategy where we can make investments into the community that are strategic, that will have a ROI or some kind of payback to the city that allows us to accomplish maybe some intermediate or permanent goals. We'll work to market and promote the town. Having Madison on board has been great. It really expands our reach and ability to be able to do that. She's a whiz at the social media, and as well as beefing up our website and making sure that we have that marketing outreach. That's going to free up a lot more time for me to be able to go out and do the business development and outreach component of it. I know that's something Councilmember Johnson has really made a priority, that we put a primary focus on being able to reach tenants, be able to reach developers, be able to reach brokers and people that influence making investments or locating to the town. And then embrace collaboration and sustainability, and that comes back to the events and activities. Having the Thunderbirds as part of that. We've worked with Desert Foothills Theater. We work cooperatively with Desert Foothills Land Trust. We work even with the Carefree Park to be able to utilize our assets for them to be able to share with what they got going on, be able to do some fundraising. We've worked with all kinds of community partners, Empty Bowls for the food bank, and with Sonoran Arts League. So those are the things that we've been trying to build really a good community base. And one of the nice things about working and being in a small town is that we can be a small town. And I think this is a huge component of that in big cities, it's always a production, but here we could do really neat things. And we've got a great space to do it in over there with the pavilion. One of the things that we always talk about are metrics. And, obviously in Carefree, the biggest metric that we need to deal with is sales tax. And that's, when we start looking at that, we've actually had sustained increase in sales tax, about 55% since 2020. And that's a mix of a lot of different things. And measuring sales tax is a little bit difficult in the sense that what we do in economic development for the most part is affecting the brick and mortar version of the sales tax. So that sales tax can include short-term rentals, that it can include online sales, those types of things. And so what we've been asked, one of the things that we were tasked to do is look at the overall build-out strategy and what's the maximum capacity for us to be able to have sales tax generation through our brick and mortar. Where we're at right now, we're looking at probably another 2.4 million that we could add to the budget on an annual basis before we hit that cap. And so it's one of the things that we're going to be very conscious of in the things that we're doing and looking at how we're driving towards that and how it fits into our budget, which is one of the reasons why for the last 2 years we've actually brought in Peter Burns, and this last year we had Sharon Smith to look at the economic outlook, because this is important, and we're going through some things that are important in our time frame and looking at different projects that could have significant impacts on our revenues and our cash flows moving forward. And so we just got to be conscious of that. And as things change, we just have to make those adjustments to make sure that we look at how that's going to impact our ability to fund government. Town center occupancy is another thing that we look at. Right now we're running about 90% occupied in town center retail area. We know we're losing one, unfortunately, here in the next probably 30 to 45 days. One of the things that we also look at is the sales tax producing space in that footprint that we call the town center retail area. And right now we're at about 67% still. It kind of bumps up to 70, sometimes goes a little lower. This is about where we've been holding at. I'm looking at targeting about 80% as being a healthy way, a healthy mix for us to having retail businesses on Easy Street. And I know there's an interest in trying to figure out ways we can do that. And talking with Council Member Roth. I know she was interested in ways that we can, are there things that we can do from a zoning perspective that will allow us to maybe just have retail on that? And so it's difficult. Those are things we'll look into. Actually talked to one of the private property owners on Easy Street who had asked the same thing, is what can we do? And one of the ways I would suggest is that we work together with the property owners to figure out, are they comfortable with trying to create some type of district? So those are the things we're exploring that can help move the needle on this. And then looking at our visitation, we have software that allows us to kind of track what visitation looks like. On average, over the past 4 years, it's been about 7% year-over-year increase in our visitation. I'm not saying it's 7% each year. It was pretty heavy earlier on. This last year was probably right around 1%, so we held steady over this past year. I would say that a big part of that was getting Athens, grinding gears. We've added some restaurants. And then we just had more tenancy. And so I think that's really been attributed to how we had some more significant growth maybe 3 years ago to this past year, which was only about 1%. So 3 years ago was about 13% growth. Next, I want to here's a list of key projects that I listed into the council report, and just wanted to quickly go through some of these. And everybody's mind is the Carefree Quarter and what's going on with that. And I know everybody's really interested in tenancy, but from the economic development perspective and the deal that we did with these guys, it really was geared around creating the opportunity. And prior to us engaging Empire and who brought in Diversified on this project, it was really clear that as we went through the economic development work plan, that this was the priority for the town for that particular year or 2 years ago, to focus on this and figure out a way and create some kind of creative strategy to be able to move sooner than later on the types of retail or the type of project we'd like to see there. And that project is something that is in conformance with the existing zoning that's going to maximize our retail. So that's what we did. We went and we talked with the property owner. We told them that we were interested in working with them on some kind of creative solution, and particularly with offsetting high costs for the wash and other offsite improvements. And so they worked with their retail developer base, and one of the ones they settled with and were comfortable moving forward with was Diversified Partners. And they brought them in. They're a qualified developer in the retail space. And so what we did was when we went through that process, and not everybody on council was there when we went through this process, but it's pretty much an open book when you do these types of sales tax agreements on kind of what their expectations are for returns, what their revenue expectations are. And so as you walk through that, you have to go through, it's pretty extensive analysis, and then you have to have a third-party review that reviews all of that. So we went through that, and really what we ended up with is an incentive agreement that basically targets retail uses, provides an open space amenity, which is also a buffer to the neighborhood, and that expedites the development of the property, which is what everybody was asking for in the work plan process. So these are the bargain terms, and from an economic development perspective, these are the things that when we look at what are the terms that are deliverables within inside that agreement. And the bargain terms basically are the condition precedent being that they have to build 60,000 square feet total by December 31st, 2026. Now they have two pathways to accomplish being able to move forward to get the incentive, and that's to either have 38,000 square feet of retail total or 2 anchor tenants as depicted on the site plan as a part of the agreement and recently approved. They do get an automatic extension that could be extended to June 30th, 2027 if the project is under construction and the developer can produce leases that meet the retail requirement explained in the condition precedent. So basically, they have from a significant amount of time from this point to be able to deliver according to the bargain terms of the agreement. And the reason being is we knew this was going to be a complex project. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and we wanted to make sure we gave the proper time for success on this particular project. If they meet this condition precedent, then they get an incentive period that starts from a point chosen by them when they meet the minimum development or condition precedent requirement through June 30th, 2027, which matches up with the automatic extension. And so that gave them flexibility of when they wanted to start this date. And that could be they wanted to start it early because they met their requirements super early and they built a lot of the project. Or they met the requirement early, but they knew they would have other things coming on. And so they wanted to be able to maximize that, and they would push off when that start date occurred. And then also, there are things that are called enforced delays. And enforced delays are things that are beyond either their control or both of our controls, or maybe things that the town caused that were unforeseen that maybe have delayed the project, where we mutually agree to extend those dates for a day for day. We also, their bargain terms were development fees were waived for them, so they don't pay any development fees. But if they don't meet the condition precedent and the development agreement doesn't occur, all those fees are doable. So if they don't do the project for whatever reason, whatever it is, we get paid for all of the work that we've done today. And then they have to construct and dedicate the public improvements, the largest one being the wash improvement. For these bargain terms, the town, when we look at the incentives that are provided, basically we provide a 49% reimbursement to construction sales tax, and then we provided a 49% reimbursement of sales tax generated for a period of 5 years. And so they have to meet their end. This is what we do. These really are the bargain for terms. And I know the big issue has been what tenants are going in there, and it's a touchy subject, especially with the developer, to be able to discuss and negotiate those things, because they're competing with the project right across the street. And every time they mention a tenant, that project can go and try to poach that particular tenant. And so they've asked us to kind of, let's slow down. It doesn't mean we can't submit ideas and things and try to get feedback back to members of the community and the council on those kinds of submittals. So I just want to, at this point, kind of talk about what we've agreed to, what we're pushing towards, and that they still have time to do these things. Mutually, both parties agreed to review plans in good faith, submit plans, do all of those things, and work on a schedule that is fairly fluid and is very dependent upon third-party approvals. Again, I already discussed the enforced delay. So from this point, I'm actually going to ask Stacy Rich-Denzak to come up and kind of talk about, because she's been handling a lot of the scheduling as it relates to the development scheduling, and can kind of show you what the complexities are and some of the approvals that we're going through. You know, they have spent money on plans. They're working through and getting permitting on a lot of offsites. And but I'll let her explain this a little bit further.
Thank you, Steve, Mayor, members of Town Council. Now, what's interesting in what Steve is alluding to is that there's several components to the development that are under the town's purview, but there's several components of this that are not, that are under sort of third parties, such as other municipalities or other utilities. So we'll kind of jump right in. So for example, Carefree Water Company. I mean, they're probably our closest utility, but again, they're not sort of under the direction of the town per se. We do have approvals from the Carefree Water Company on the off-site water line extension, so that's been approved by them, as well as the on-site water lines for Parcel A. We are still going to be working with the developer on a water line agreement, which tends to cover things such as fees. We also are waiting for information, or I should say the developer is waiting on information from ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources. They're looking for a reissuance of the Certificate of Assured Water Supply, which we call the CAUS. And in doing so is because they're doing a transfer of ownership. And so from Carefree Water Company, sometimes the ADWR can be a bit slow, but they are in the process. They've submitted and they're waiting for that revision to their approvals. We are under Liberty Utilities for sewer for that property. I think you heard from the owners last time, or I know at our Development Review Board meeting, they talked about a lift station being completed. That this project is dependent upon in early 2026. They have submitted their review for their actual sewer lines in our parcel in the northeast corner, which are under review right now as well. So they are waiting for feedback on that. As I mentioned again, it's interesting for a corner that we drive by. It seems quite simple, but we border, or the Carefree Highway borders 2 municipalities, as well as Cave Creek Road borders ours. Town of Cave Creek, again, looking at Carefree Highway off-site improvements. As I understand it from the developer, their right-of-way permit has been approved. They are waiting for Empire Diversified to pay their bond, and then they will issue that approval, that permit approval. They're also waiting, they're working with the city of Scottsdale on their off-site improvements, also in Carefree Highway, their right-of-way permit with the city of Scottsdale, and I think this isn't new information. Of course, they're doing a widening project, so they have to be sure that the work that's happening in front of the northeast corner aligns with that project, as well as there's a whole new signal that's going in at the 56th Street intersection. So as I understand it, they've submitted, they're waiting for the city of Scottsdale to provide final feedback. So Steve, the next slide. So under the town of Carefree's purview, we moved forward on June 9th with site plan approval for parcel A. As you know, the development is made up of 3 parcels. I just want to say that the town is poised and ready to move forward on any of the things that we go over. Basically, we have responded as in a timely manner as we can and been as thorough as we can. So with that site plan approval, just to understand is that approval is good for 1 year in the sense that we are expecting their building permit submittals, which include the on-sites, which are what we call infrastructure improvements. That's also considered a building permit, as long as they get that going within a year, or they may ask for an extension request on that approval. In Cave Creek Road, that's our adjacent right-of-way. The off-site improvements, we have issued our second review comments. That was back in June, just after their approval. So we're waiting for them to resubmit on some final comments that were provided by the town engineer. The northeast corner, so the on-site infrastructure improvements, those include things as the wash relocation, some of the mass grading that would be required, the parking areas, the landscaping. That's all infrastructure related to on-site improvements. And so we are still waiting for that submittal to be provided to the town in building permit format. It has gone through with the development review board and with the site plan approval some pretty thorough and pretty advanced utility documents, grading documents, landscaping documents. The building permit takes it kind of to the next level and becomes the buildable document. So what we like, or what I like about our process, is that we really kind of vet that early in the site plan approval, so the building permit process should be a little bit more streamlined when they submit. Then following, we were looking also for the actual building, the building permit submittals. Again, and I tied to both of those that there's sort of an anticipated time frame that we had worked with the developer of about 10 to 12 weeks based on sort of a planned idea of when they will submit and when we will provide review comments. And lastly, what's important that they need approval that needs to come in front of you is for the corner art piece. And that is required before we will issue any building permits. And I'm happy to answer any questions unless, Steve, you want to just continue and we can do questions afterwards. So.
Well, while you're up there, we can ask questions,
Okay.
at least to Stacy. So we talk about EDWR having to approve
A new certificate of assured water supply.
Correct. So is that in the critical path of approval for the construction of the water line? So in other words, must that be done before they can submit a permit to construct the water line down roughly 60th Street down to their property?
Mayor, that's a good question. I don't believe so. I think it just has to happen before we can actually issue a building permit, but I think they can continue with their submittals and review processes
That can happen
moving
in
forward.
parallel.
Yes.
Okay. And then on the, we talk about the flood control district here.
Thank you. Yes.
So, so we are coordinating, so we're working with the flood control district?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor. We are not required to submit, or nor I shouldn't say we, the development or the developer is not required to submit through Flood Control District in Maricopa County because it's not a floodplain, but our town engineer is utilizing their expertise because it's a significant feat to move a wash that has over 600 cubic feet per second flow rates. And so they have graciously provided feedback to our town engineer who has relayed that to the developer.
So it says pending submittal, so they haven't submitted their wash construction.
Correct. So, so that bullet point is saying that we're waiting for the developer to submit those plans to the town. And what CJ DiMaggio will do when we get those plans is coordinate back with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County. But he did actually speak with them and did get feedback during the
site plan approval process. But once again, I think he'll reach out again once we have our construction documents related to the building permit.
Okay, if we go back to the last slide about Liberty, or maybe it's the next slide.
It was previous.
Okay, lift station completion early 2026 pending. So what's pending? Completion of the upgrades to the lift stations in early 2026, which is like, not so far away, or is this, I don't know what this means.
It's both,
Permitting, or
Mayor,
what does
yes.
it mean?
It's pending the actual construction installation of the lift station. It also is pending their review of our on-site sewer plans, of the developer's on-site sewer plans. So those things are kind of, I know they're a little disjointed, but basically both of those processes are happening at the
So we
same time.
expect them to do the improvements to the lift stations
By
early next year.
Yes.
somehow.
Right, by the end of next year, I would say, because it's going to be ready in 2026. Yes.
Interesting. I have questions
Oh, no,
for
you-
council for,
Yep.
are you okay?
I apologize, you're right. The end of this year, beginning of next year, they should be complete. And that information was relayed to us by the developer, so that's not information that I got from Liberty.
Okay. So questions, any other questions from council for Stacy?
Make a comment. I thank Stacy and Steve for inviting me to meet with the developer as well other developers. I was really impressed how hard everybody worked to elevate the quality of the project, and the team, the whole group in Carefree, I think all works very comfortably together. And I was happy to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a couple of questions. One on the wash. There's no reason why they couldn't have started it when we had to approve everything by last November. I would think they'd be wanting to do the wash. And as Walt said many, many times, he needed the approval to show dirt work. So I think the dirt work expression was used 7 or 8 times, and that he was going to get that going, and the wash would be make the most sense. You
Right.
can't do anything with that being done. So why haven't they gotten the permits and started the work on the wash?
I cannot answer why. What I would suggest, so if you could go to the next slide, Steve, that talks about what the on-site infrastructure improvements include. It's not just moving a wash. That is just one component of the entire on-site infrastructure improvements. In my opinion, I think it would be odd to just move the wash based on how you would have to resolve that movement, that grading, that earthwork with existing grade that would eventually be developed in the not too distant future. So it would seem that it would be a lot of effort, it would be a lot of risk, for example, if we did native plant inventory. Now, we have a lot of the native plant inventory for the entire project. A lot of the majority of that landscaping is going to go along the wash itself. So we might have a risk of having some of the wash done and some of the landscape relocated. They might have to have landscaping that would sit for a while. I would think that would probably not be in our interest to have plants out there for an extended period of time. Just based on, in my experience, how kind of general development of a shopping center, of a commercial center would be, and in this case, moving a component, which is a piece of infrastructure, is that it just doesn't happen in separate pieces. It needs to happen sort of simultaneously, particularly related to something that's earthwork specific. So I can't answer why they haven't submitted. From what they have said to us, they are looking to submit soon for those improvement plans. Like I mentioned, they have the year to do so. I know, Steve, there's triggers in the agreement, the development agreement, but I believe that they're consciously working on moving the project forward. I don't get any feeling as to why they would not want to be doing that, but it seems to me logically not that you wouldn't move a major component on a site and leave the rest of it undeveloped. It would be a little disjointed, and it just, I've never seen development happen that way
I'm
before.
not saying it'd be, that would be your beginning of it, the site. If you're actually going to do the construction, you would do the wash first. You're not going to take the chance, you haven't done the wash and we have a monsoon and your site's flooded. So the whole point of moving the wash is to
Right.
control the water flow, correct?
Oh, it is, but I mean, they're not going to do the wash first and then leave the rest of the site for later development. And so they would grade the wash and grade the rest of the site, so yes, so that it works together. And so when they submit for that permit, they're going to submit the relocation of the wash and the grading that's associated with it. They're going to submit, I should say, the plans for the general grading of the entire site. They're going to resubmit or submit the plans for the parking lot. So they do the documents first, and then I don't know, however they want to phase it. They may want to work on the wash relocation. That's not my expertise. They would probably work to excavate, but they would do it so holistically. They would do their plant salvage first, and they set up their nursery, and so then they would, strategically, if that made the most sense for them to work on first, then yes, they would do that.
But doing the wash would show that they're actually doing the project.
I hear you say doing the wash. In my mind, it's doing the wash in the entire site.
Well, that's not fair. I mean, the wash would be the beginning of it. You're not going to do the wash afterwards. You're going to do it
Likely,
as you're
right.
starting the project. It would be the first phase.
Mhm.
Most projects are done in phases.
Yeah, the wash would be part of the earthwork. And so when you start looking at how the earthwork would be done for the wash, it would go hand in hand with scraping the rest of the site and moving dirt around. So you're going to be pulling dirt out of the wash, you're going to be filling in different areas. They're going to try to best utilize all that. And so what they're looking at right now is as I showed you earlier, there's two pathways for them to be able to get. They preferably like to do both pathways at the same time, having anchor tenants and building as much as they can. But they've got to be conscious about how the paths and some of the retail shops and those spaces would be built. And so when that all starts to come together and they understand how all that grading is going to be put together, then it makes it easier for them to come and start doing that work. And so that's basically what the conversation has been with them is they're just, as they're feeling it through and making sure and finalizing deals that allow them to start on the project, then you'll start seeing more of that type of activity. But even before that, you'll probably see some of the off-site improvements like the water line and some other things where they can already get permitted to get done. Personally, I think at the end of the day, they should do the water line anyhow, because that site always is going to need water. So I think, Mary, you were kind of alluding to that as well. And we've asked about that, and one of the comments that we got back was that they really would like to take advantage of economies of scale, and as far as costs and everything else, to look at this totality of all the off-site improvements that need to be done, and try to put that more under a single contract to be able to come in and do those off-sites at the same time versus piecemealing it in that manner.
But you've only given a permit for Site A, correct? On the
They've gotten their
water line.
site plan approval
Yeah,
for A.
But if they're going to do the water line, they've got to run it right by B. Do
Yep.
they need separate permits for
Well-
doing the water line into B? Because that comes before A, not going to go up and around.
Right,
Come down.
right.
So have they put in a permit for B of running the water line to B?
Well, they
Because
have,
economies of scale, you would do those two at the same time if they're going to develop B.
right. Well, as I understand it from Carefree Water Company is that, yes, so we're talking, again, we have to kind of remember there's on-site and off-site. So when we talk about the water lines right now, those are sort of off-site improvements, right? Because we're going to come up Carefree Highway and they need to extend that line to the development parcel. Once they have that, they're going to submit for the on-site infrastructure improvements, which include all of those improvements, which include the water lines on-site, they can build it to parcel A, but they are planning for understanding parcel B. So that was part of our development review board and part of the site plan approval. It wasn't just looking at parcel A in a vacuum. So there were certain things that while they may not be looking to develop parcel B at the moment, or they're still looking for their site plan approval for parcel B, they are considering holistically how the entire development would be constructed. So that when we wait for these on-site infrastructure improvement plans, we're looking for it for the totality of the site.
And then if there's a problem with Liberty, on how is that going to affect the site? Everything gets delayed. They're supposed to have the lift station by 2026. They say they're supposed to be opening. Can they go forward with their construction if there's a delay with that lift station? And
That's a
Gotta have
concern.
sewage.
No, that's a concern. Unfortunately, it's a concern that's not under our purview. I mean, if it was, a lot of municipalities have their own sewer companies and water companies. Unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of a lot of these third parties. So we just have to, work with our developer and see where they're at with Liberty and press ahead as best as we can.
Yeah, so I think two comments. One, doing the wash now, I think it's just a balancing act with the timing of other things that the developer has to manage. Because the last thing we want to do is lade the lot, have a gigantic pile of dirt there, and then a delay. I mean, if you live over there, the last thing you want to do is have this dust flying everywhere. It's an eyesore. So you just think about Cave Creek, next to Stagecoach Village, to the east of there, where there was a property under construction. It was dirt. It just sat there forever. So there's a balancing act there somehow. And the other thing I would just say for the town, so there's a lot of moving parts here. Things are, of course, beyond our control. But it's certainly incumbent upon us to make sure everyone understands that we're here to help them. We have ideas. We can make phone calls if things are stalled. We can do stuff. We know Liberty, probably, maybe, I don't know, possibly better than Diversified does. We may know folks at Flood Control District. Who knows what we know? But we can help them.
Agree. Yeah. Like I said, we're poised and ready to move forward when we have the information.
And I mean, Stacy said it, and I'll say it, I haven't seen anything that suggests that there's any lack of desire on the developer or the property owner to move forward. I mean, particularly the property owner, they've sunk a significant amount of time and money and all the engineering and analysis and everything else that's gone in to do the project. And it's quality developer, and I feel very confident that we're going to be able to move forward on this project and get a nice project for the community. I know there's been concerns about quality of tenancy. I just want to say, from an economic development perspective, the bargain for terms are for retail. Anything that's of a qualitative nature, and I know everybody has their own opinions on specific tenants and everything else. My goal is to get retail into there and get the best retail that we can possibly get. I think they're committed to the same thing. If there's a little bit of patience that's required to get moving on forward on the project, to get the right types of tenants that are going to allow them to perform the best on this site, then that's what we need to do. And again, there's a commitment, and I've talked to them about the tenant issues, because I said flat out, Walt came in a little hot in November about tenants, and now people have a high expectations of what tenancy could or potentially look like. And so the commitment is that every other week we're going to get together, we're going to talk about tenancy. Any council member, anybody from the community, I know Mr. Trainer submitted in some ideas and thoughts about different tenants. Those things will get forwarded on. They're going to respond back to giving me responses back to the things that we send to them. And in addition, we do work with them on helping secure tenants. I provide a lot of ideas. I've worked specifically writing emails to various tenants to try to let them know that the town is specifically interested in getting those types of tenants, and so we're going to do everything we can to support them.
So I'd like to, just about tenants, you talked about how we don't want to throw names out there, and maybe Walt shouldn't have thrown names out there. I would think it's completely appropriate that when we come back, and you mentioned metrics in this, that we could have, from a metric standpoint, when they have a signed lease, they've got a deal, it's done. We could have a list of what's a done deal, because they've got the contract, and then they're not going to be poached, right? So we could, I think that would be valuable at a meeting like this, to let everyone know, hey, they've got A, B, C, D, E locked in. We're going from there.
Yeah, so I've asked them that specific question, and they basically came back and said, look, when we're prepared to be able to release specific tenants, because certain tenant signings may have impacts on other tenant signings, and so some of these things are like dominoes that fall together, and I know that Scott said he's specifically concerned about having a lot of these ongoing conversations, and so I know at some level they're going to have to come back and explain it, especially if they're going to be moving forward on the project. I think it'd be great to explain who all is going in there, and I think they will do at that time. My commitment is to try to make sure that whenever there's information I can share with the council, I will. And That's the best I can tell you at this point.
Well, one of the problems is on March 4th, at the 42-minute mark, they said they had one lease signed, 6 behind it, no later than 45 days. And it was a combination of restaurants, large-scale retail. So mid-April, they were supposed to tell us. They said they had retail. No, Panera Bread's not retail, Whataburger's not retail, and All About Bunt isn't. June 3rd, three leases, no anchor. Minute 30, Scott said several more leases, and on June 9th, when we had the joint, that he was going to announce the leases, that they were, you know, like Lon just said, if you have a signed lease, you have a deal. So there's no reason not to tell us who the leases are. And it's ridiculous. We've got Aldi's and 6 stores going down the road. We've got the Southeast Corner going forward, and their excuse is, well, they can't let the competition know. The competition is smoking us right now. So I would think they'd want to reassure the town that they actually, I mean, I can give you numerous times they sat there and said to us, we've 75% leased, all he needed in November was the signature. So what happened to it? He told us he had PetSmart. Where'd they go? You know, he'd throw out a name, then they poof, disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah,
So,
whether they came and wanted to talk about tenants and what they've discussed is their business if they wanted to do that. There's nothing that we have that compels them to tell us what the tenants are. So if they want to share it, they will share it. If they don't want to share it, they don't have to share it. Our goal again is to get the retail. I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's really what I wanted to get to today. Is that I know everybody gets hung up on the tenancy, and I get it. That's the exciting part. That's the sexy part. But at the end of the day, we were asked to get retail sales tax on this particular site, and I don't want to argue with you, but those 3 that you mentioned all do produce sales tax, and so. So those are the things that we are going to look at. They are keenly aware that for them to be successful to get the incentives, they have to deliver on retail tenancy. Yeah. A little Clint Eastwood going on here. Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, I've never talked about tenancy. When we did the original presentation, it was really focused around what these deal terms are. And to be honest with you, that's what I'm focused on, is making sure that we get this deal done, that we drive and get this thing to getting 60,000 square feet, whatever option A, option B, hopefully both, by December 31st. And if not, at least we're on the pathway to get there by June 30th, 2027. So that's what Stacy and I are really focused on, and we will do everything we can to help them with the tenancy. And I know they do appreciate any input that you guys will have on how we can impact and the types of tenants that we'd like to see there. So that's where we're at right now.
Well,
Yeah,
their bank loan is dependent on getting tenants. They've got 70,000 square feet. They've only have 10% lease. That's 7,000. So they're gonna have a problem getting financing if they don't produce more tenants. So, I mean, it's the fact that they haven't been able to, on our prime property, which they were telling us was so fabulous, in 10 months, they've only come up with 3. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, they know
it
their
begs the
business.
question, how
Yeah.
hard are they trying?
But we don't
Yes.
know exactly that they only have 3 right now. But when Diversified came on the picture here, and I first became aware of them, I did look them up before Walt even came in to talk to us, and they have a very impressive resume. They've done thousands of deals. So I don't feel like I'm qualified to, judge their ability to do something that they have an area of expertise that I do not have. So and in my career, I financed many projects over 35 years exactly like this. And having the developer give a play-by-play of who was signed on to a retail project was not common. It would happen at the very end of, the period even during construction. So it is not, you know, their behavior to me is not completely out of the realm of what I have experienced. And once again, if you look at their resume and go to their website, they're very impressive. They've done thousands of deals. So I have confidence that they know how to do this.
Yes,
Well,
I
on
would
their
just say that, and I agree, they're quite accomplished, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for moving this thing forward. So no matter what their resume is, I think that's critical. So we have to keep an eye on them and work with them. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us, including everyone here, that when we have ideas, we let them know what the ideas are, right? So you come across some establishment that you think is a home run that fits in our community, so that should be flagged and tracked down, and maybe they've done it already, but maybe they haven't. So I think that's something we should all keep in mind, because it's going to be, our town's a beautiful place. We love living here. I think you get the right tenants in here, whether it's here, town core, or down there, they'll be successful, and it's for us to bring people to the table who may fit into that puzzle, but at the same time, we need to just keep an eye on the project, and no matter how great they have been, you know, we have a responsibility to watch it. I think that's fair.
But also on their website, I too looked at it, they have 58 projects going. Only 27 of them have anchors out of the 58. And some of the anchors on the 27 are not an anchor they brought in. So right now, maybe that's the problem. They've got too many projects that are in the dirt stage like we are, without anchors. So
Well, we
unless
don't-
you get a
do you
good
know-
anchor, it's a
Do you
problem.
know the population of people at Diversified that are working on all these different projects? I mean, this is what they do.
Yeah, so,
This is what they do.
and just to kind of clarify, we don't own the property. We didn't contract with Diversified. This is a joint venture, a joint partnership between the property owner and Diversified. Diversified is beholden to performing for that property owner. That property owner has brought them in, and so the two of them together are spending money. So that property owner has a significant interest in Diversified being successful. And so that was one of the reasons why we reached directly out to the property owner to begin with, and really encourage the property owner to be part of the solution instead of just trying to spin and flip it to a developer. To your point, then now you're just dealing with a specific developer who isn't necessarily beholden to anything. They're paying to be there, right? These guys were brought in, they're code developing it, they're part of the deal with the property owner. And so, you know, I'd like to say that I had the opportunity and the choice to pick who that property owner wanted to help develop that property. They used their relationships and they brought a qualified person in, a developer in. And so we did everything that was asked of us to try to enable that development to occur. I mean, it's just the way it's the way it works.
And I don't disagree with anything you just said. All I'm going to say about this is, I think you said it. This Walt comes in, firing, telling us we got Trader Joe's, we got PetSmart, we've got all these, you know, and so when I'm seeing folks around town, they're all saying, hey, when's Trader Joe's coming in? That's your problem. And, you know, Sheila, you may be right that they don't say anything till the end, but these guys came in hot. They were demanding we, you know, give them approval in November. Hey, we got to move quick. And that's, I think, the problem here, because now everyone's expectations have been set much higher.
I don't disagree with that statement at all.
Okay, and I would agree with that. But I would also say, you know, this company is Diversified, is a huge company. They've already spent like $100 million in the first half of this year. They've got $150 million slated for the second half of this year. We don't know where each of these projects are. I also would say, when saying who your tenants are, yes, we have to worry about the southeast corner. But again, we want this to be a very positive experience, and we want the right kind of businesses for our town. I think we have to rely on them knowing how many deals they've done. They've done over 3 million square feet since they've been in here in the metropolitan Phoenix area. So they know what works in what area. We have to trust them on that. We can give them ideas, but they know for each area what works well. Also, at the same time, when they say a business, I will say, you're talking about PetSmart. When they said that, a lot of people disparaged it. A lot of people complained, and it was very negative. So I could see how they might be like, well, if I tell you who the tenants are, and then you're gonna, they wanted to be positive. They want to move forward. So I could see competition-wise, trying to get there, making sure everything's solid. trying to get the anchor stores. But yes, they're looking at the economy. We'd love Trader Joe's, but maybe it's not them. So I do think that we have to rely on them as the experts and let them do their job, and we can tell them what our thoughts are as well at the same time.
I think you said it very well.
All right, so once you have some other items on your list.
Yeah,
of
so
things here?
now let's just quickly roll through these because I knew that was the topic du jour, but I did want to update where we are on some of the strategic initiatives. The facade program was approved by town council. We have interest from 3 property owners, and we actually just conducted our first pre-application, which is pretty exciting. So I can't say what it is because it's pre-application phase, but we'll get that application in and move through. Hopefully we'll get more, but it's a good project that will expand retail and allow. I think it's exactly the type of project we're looking for. So
It's the kind of project where we'll actually have a return on investment.
correct. The town hall, Mary said that we've already did the EDAB kickoff. We do have an August 18th open house, and so really what's going to be is just a casual come in. It'll be for 2 hours, but it's not a 2-hour presentation. Nobody has to sit here for 2 hours. I mean, I think everybody hates listening to me talk for 2 hours. And so it'll just be, we're going to have stations set up. We're going to have at least 3 of them to talk about use. We'll talk about the type of architecture and what the site would look like and design standards that people have expectations for. And then we'll talk about what people's thoughts are about town hall and where those opportunities are, and then maybe some of the deal economics that people expect, and how those things rank, right? What's more important, the type of use we get, making sure that we make money on the deal, all those things. We'll kind of maybe put some fun activities together, and the idea is just start taking that information, building that database of what we want, and then ultimately work towards getting an RFP put together. Our time frame is really to try to get something out the door this year, and work that through the EDAB process. We'll also be talking with stakeholder, the businesses and the property owners. And I've had a lot of conversations with potential developers, and there's excitement and interest in wanting to develop this particular site.
So going back to the open house, what's the structure of that? How will that work so everyone has an expectation?
Yeah, so it's walk in, walk out. So as much time as you want. You don't have to show up right at 4:30. It runs from 4:30 to 6. So if you want to even show up at 4:20 and just spend 10 minutes just providing what your thoughts are. And the idea was to allow people who don't work the ability to come in a little earlier, and people who do work the opportunity to come in a little bit later. And so we did it on that Monday there. And honestly, it was the only day and time that everybody was available in August. So, and then this won't be the only town hall thing that we do, or open house that we do. We'll look at doing other things that engage the public, and probably work with Madison on being able to get input, through the website and through email and other resources.
So if those who attend have comments,
they can leave comments too. Yeah,
they will be recorded somehow.
Well, no, we're not going to record, but we'll have a comment box. And then what we'll do is we'll try to put some things there where people can check boxes or rank things, and that way we can get an idea, just get some cursory data on that. And then each of so there will be 2 people at each station, and then at those stations they'll kind of summarize what they heard, and then we'll take all that summary information and try to put that together in some cohesive way to be able to just look at the data and information. Yeah, so it's not like and then we'll actually have some information up on the screens, probably about a 5-slide rolling deck of just kind of what's going on and how to participate.
So it's an opportunity to come in and talk with the stations will be manned by staff and some council members.
Yeah,
so it's really an opportunity to come and learn something, and at the same time share whatever's on your mind, the questions that you have, one-on-one instead of like this.
Right, yeah, more conversational. And then one of the things we're looking at are some key vacant spaces. Obviously with the ACE coming on, that just probably in the last few weeks went to subtenancy. So ACE is moving out. They're moving into the building down there, which is owned by Whitestone. Whitestone is actually obligated to fulfill the end of the lease or try to do a subtenant lease on the existing ACE lease, which I think has about 2 years left on that. And so we've talked to both that broker and the broker for the Basha Center to figure out what's the best strategy to bring somebody in, whether somebody comes in under a subtenancy or somebody's going to come in under maybe just sign a whole brand new lease. And so we have talked to Bashas' about what their key tenants and what would be complementary. We're talking with some of the other tenants that are in there of what they would like to see would help make them successful. The primary tendency that everybody's looking at is potentially pharmacy. Bashas' does not have a full-time pharmacy, so they said they would love to have one. Home goods and appliance is another one that we're going to be focusing on because we already have Sue Bickerdike, we have the patio, we have a lot of that already in that Bella Fine Goods, and so it's really kind of developing into that as well. And then, always we'd love to replace it with hardware. It doesn't have to be general hardware, but it could be decorative hardware like doors or doorknobs or anything like that. We've looked at a lot of those different ones, and so as we look at these vacant spaces, it's going to be trying to do some original outreach to some tenants that we would love to see here that maybe are in the valley that would look to expand. We'll be working with brokerages that do tenant representation, and then that's the way we're going to try to focus on trying to bring these types of tenants here, and so working on that.
So again, we're open to ideas, right? What do you think? We're all smart people. We spent the last 50 years, each of us, shopping around. So maybe we have ideas that we can bring and share, and Steve can present them to the broker.
And then commercial code compliance, which is my least favorite thing in life to deal with, but it's extremely important, and I know it's something that that this council made a priority. And so it kind of goes through a lot of various different things. And one of the things that we're doing, and we started focusing on first, was revamping and looking at our business licensing. And a lot of things that were getting approved kind of maybe shouldn't have been getting approved, and it just happens to be because it just wasn't going through and getting through enough hands and getting through enough eyes. And so maybe something that got approved that seemed like a legit business maybe wasn't in compliance with the zoning code. And it's no fault on anybody. It's just the way the process went. And so we've really been tightening that up. We now have a process where it goes through. You still have to process these things in a timely manner for the state law, but you want to make sure that when we approve these things that we're approving things that are uses that are compliant and that are within the zoning, and they're getting all the proper permits and everything else. The other part of it is that our code requires, and most town code or city codes require, that when you get a tenant improvement and anything moving in, whether it's a lease or somebody owns a building, any new tenant that moves into a space is considered a tenant improvement under the code. Each and every one of them has to get a certificate of occupancy. And so we find that a lot of times when people get their business license, they think they have the ability to just run into a brick and mortar business or building and start conducting business. And they haven't gone through and gotten their certificate of occupancy to make sure that they meet the code for any electrical work they do or ADA requirements or those types of things. So one of the things we've been doing to catch that is the fire department and the fire marshal has been looking at when they do their annual inspections, do they have their certificate of occupancy and their business license, which are supposed to be posted and shown. And so if they don't have that, our goal is to work with those businesses to come in compliance. If there's things that they need to do because the fire department realizes that there's problems, they may bring in the building official and they'll try to find ways to resolve and fix those things and get those permitted. We're also addressing land use violations, and particularly one of the ones is storage uses. That in some cases it's a business that says they're a business and then they aren't a business and all they're doing is storing stuff. Then we've had businesses that were doing retail, but they were also doing other things. And when they stop doing the retail component, that other thing becomes the primary use. And so it might not just be storage, but it might be wholesale distribution. The meadery was one of the ones that's brought up. And so they do conduct business out of there. We've reached out to a lot of these businesses. It's been across the board, and we've been reaching out both to the tenants, the businesses, as well as the property owners, because in our code, both are responsible for what happens in a building when it comes to these zoning issues. And so I would say that for the most part, there's been a lot of businesses who are willing to comply and make sure that they're following the land use and the zoning ordinance. One great success story was over at Ho and Tom Darlington in the two-story building there. We had basically a pack rat storage use and somebody living in one of the ground units. And so we talked to that property owner, we talked to the representative. They actually evicted both those tenants, fixed up, cleaned up the entire building, repainted it, and re-tenanted it with two businesses that are in compliance with the code. So it's really nice and refreshing when it happens that easy and we can have those easy conversations. And now we're willing to work with property owners like that when we start looking at facade improvements and other things. It's just a productive relationship. And so and we've created those out of some lemons, we've been able to create a little bit of lemonade. I hate that.
So why don't you give a shout out to those two businesses?
The one is, oh my God. It's Andrew's.
Sorry. Didn't mean
Andrew's
to embarrass you, but it's like,
We Believe is one of
We
them,
Believe,
and I don't know the
exactly.
name of the other one. It's an office use that's in the other one, but We Believe is a wellness center, and it's actually a run by the guy who did the remodel, and so he's the property manager out there as well. And but it's nice to be able to get something in there that's it's not retail generating, but it's commercial. It's not storage, and it's not somebody living in the space. Then we're also dealing with other code issues, sign violations. In particular, sometimes temporary signs get left up as permanent signs for way too long. So we're dealing with those. Stacy's dealt with the feather banners, that were getting a little out of control. And so across the board, feather banners, please come down, only for special and specific events. We're dealing with things working without permits. I would say it seems a lot of this happens on the residential as well as the commercial side. And then, operating in a space we talked about without a certificate of occupancy. Just our code requires it. And we're also looking at reviewing code improvements, so looking at the town code and how we deal with that and how we're structuring what we need to do here to be successful can be backed by the town code, and making sure that we can enforce these things and that the documentation that what we're doing now is in line with the town code, and any changes that need to be made to the town code to help make it more effective, we're reviewing that and going to be making those changes. We'll bring those back to council. And then applying, again, it's really are applying the code equally across the board, and again, to both tenants and property owners, and that's what the town code requires. And so, when you do this, it's kind of all or nothing by the book. And either you're not going to do it or you're just going to do it all in. And so that's the way we're approaching it right now. And yes, we will work with people who are willing to work with us, but if somebody tells us to go to court, right now we're going to go to court. I mean, that's just the way it works. And when it comes down specifically also to public safety, we're not going to allow the public to not be safe. And so we're really going to start taking, not that we haven't, but really taking it to heart, that making sure that we do those things. And again, I'd say that the vast majority like they didn't realize that they were even out of compliance. And some of it is because we gave them a business license that said they can do that. And some of them were like, oh no, I get it now. And it's been refreshing with those that have been working with us.
Yeah, and I would just add that when we have properties that are commercially zoned and they're being used for storage or manufacturing, it's really a loss for us in terms of the opportunity for revenue generation, right? For sales, for a town that runs itself on sales tax, we can't afford to have properties used inappropriately. I mean, it just hurts us. So we're willing to work with businesses to give them some time, figure it out, but eventually time is up. So maybe we can just talk about the CVS property a little bit. I'm happy to do it, but.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? I think it's more
Okay,
important.
so, there's a case in point, CVS property, Rare Earth came and they actually spoke here. And you look at that business and it can be a real sales tax generator for our town. So they came to us and we allowed them, despite the ordinance, to say, you can use it for storage until you get up and running. And we had a written agreement that gave them roughly from January 9th until August 31st. Well, unfortunately, we'll say no fault of their own, there's hardships, economics, etc. They weren't able to perform. And eventually you have to say, okay, thank you for trying, but you have to leave and free up the space for an opportunity that might be sales tax generating for us. And maybe the building will sit vacant, that's possible, but as it is now, it doesn't generate anyway. So that's just an example where we've worked with a business, we've tried, and unfortunately it didn't pan out.
To date, yes.
Sorry?
To date, yeah.
It hasn't panned out, period. Okay.
Yeah, and on other activities, just want to kind of just go quick here. Circulation and parking plan. We've been working this through the Economic Development Advisory Board. We're kind of winding down finally to the end. We had the workshop We did take a lot of the comments from the workshop. We took comments from staff. We really looked through the latest set of drawings, made all of our comments, so when we get the next draft back, it'll be a nice substantial draft. I don't want to spend any more money with Kimley Horn. I'm trying to do more drafts, so hopefully we'll get this done probably within the next 3 months. We're looking to finalize that and bring it back to the P&Z and the council. We've been working on business outreach and merchant meetings with the chamber, and I know we've had a few so far. But our commitment is to try to get out and meet with every single business over the next, maybe 18 months, or as many as we possibly can, to just start to let businesses tell us, what's going on in town, what helps, what do they like about the town, what could we do, and really start working on that outreach. We're preparing the events and activities for the season. Madison's really taken the bull by the horns on that one, which is great. It's really freed up a lot of my time. It's going to be a fantastic season, and even this last season, we've had so many events. I'm really excited for what's going on. And then implementing pedestrian parking and traffic solutions to the town center. And so we're working a little bit more closely with CJ, looking at our CIP for town center this year, how to best spend that on things that we already, whether it was low-hanging fruit or things that we've already identified through this circulation and parking plan that we can do before we approve the plan. That just makes sense for us to be able to enhance parking or enhance pedestrian improvements. We're going to start working on those as well. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Okay, questions from council?
I do. I have 2 questions, and it's from the very beginning of your presentation, so I had to make a note. So you said that town center occupancy, that we're at 90%. I know that's not including ACE. What I want to know is that including all businesses or including ones that aren't producing? Like we've got ones, let's just say the Meadery, right? So they're in there, so it's occupied, but we're not getting revenue. Los Portales, we're including all that. Are we including, when you say that, all of town center and we're 90% occupied? Or please tell me what's not included. My second question is, what is our current percentage of service businesses in the town compared to retail businesses in the town?
Yeah, so for the entire town? Or?
Yeah, like, in I can't remember if it was the ULI or the plan from like 10 years ago. We were not where we should be, right? We had more service business than we did retail, and our goal was to kind of improve that. I'm just curious where we are today on those percentages.
Yeah, so to your first question, so when we went through, then we did the opportunity report with the revenue projections. We went into a deep dive on this, and the way I look at it is looking at the footprint of retail, and that is going to be including Mariachi Plaza, anything that has a retail footprint in the town center, and Spanish Village. We included Sundancer Plaza, the other building I just talked about, Easy Street, and looking at Easy Street proper. And so those are the things we've looked at. I do not include the property that's not on the rent roll, which would be the lower half of Los Portales. I can't include that because it's not being released. And so that's when I start looking at what that percentage of retail space is. And so that's the 67%. I can't tell you what.
Wait, so you said it was 90%. So like, let's just say the new museum.
Right.
Is that included in the 90% occupied space?
So the museum would be included in that occupied space. The 67%, it falls in the non-67%, right? Whatever.
Okay, so you are including businesses that really aren't producing retail, but they could be, but they're not currently today, but they are
Right.
occupied, whether it's storage or something. That's okay.
Right. So when we look at that 33%, how do we get that to 20%? Right. That'd be a healthy. And what kind of businesses are those? And so because a lot of the wellness businesses that we have actually generate a lot of traffic, so they do bring people in.
Yep.
And so what you try to do is have a nice healthy mix, and we're looking at the healthy mix as 80-20.
Okay, and you may not have it, but if you have it later, what our current percentage of retail to service business currently in town? That'd be great.
Yeah, I can do it for the entire
Yeah.
town. Okay,
Yeah.
I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the council? So open up the public comment. Do we have any slips?
Mayor, may I make a comment, please?
Yeah, sure.
I noticed, I said, where are the public comment cards?
The table is not there.
I'm
The
sorry.
room was dismantled for a prior meeting and hasn't been reset the way it was. The speaker cards are located right behind me. I would like to say that anyone who wishes to come up to speak can just come up to speak at the mayor's request. I will just take down your name. So please, Mayor, ask if anyone would like to come up and
I see
speak.
one hand, Mr. Nimsky.
Yeah, I hadn't planned on speaking, but I've got a couple of questions or comments.
You got this timer?
Oh, yeah, put on the
First
time.
person breaking this
If you
thing.
could hold one moment, please, we're going to try out the new timer. Okay, 3 minutes, start. There you go, sir.
Oh, I get 2 extra seconds? No, just kidding.
Just for you.
You made the comment early on that you and the council are willing to help the developer in whatever way you can, right? I remember that. Well, you can only do that, or at least my experience is that you can only do that if you have information from the other side. And it seems to me that there is still a lot of unknowns with regards to where this project is, what is the success of the project, et cetera. So I think that's something that you need to take under advisement, Steve. The other thing is, there's really 3 partners, right? It's the developer, it's the owner, and it's the town. And what I hope we don't get into is this thought process that says, we're just here to approve some technical things, like a permit, et cetera, that this ought to be an equal partnership among 3 entities, all with one goal in mind. And that goal is to make this development as best as possible. And that should include the developer providing the information that the town council and the mayor needs in order to be a good partner. That's my first comment. My second comment is on the list of activities. Those are great, but none of them have a target date. And that's like saying, I'm going to fix Social Security, but when? Who knows? I think in terms of those activities, and you and I have had this conversation, we need to begin to assign target dates so that if we say we're going to do something, let's figure out or let's identify by when we're going to do that. Because otherwise it becomes pretty much just a meaningless statement of, here's a goal of ours. But we really aren't committing to when that goal is going to be accomplished. Anyway, thank you. And I've got 55 seconds, so I lead those 55 seconds to anybody else who wants to talk.
Okay.
Just,
Anybody? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and real quick, just to answer your questions. Yeah, I agree with you that if we look at any future discussions on how we manage this contract with Empire Diversified, I think that's going to be something that the council is going to have to weigh in. Is what are they providing, right? There's always a give and a get. That's why I look at how these contracts work. So, we'll cross that bridge if we ever even get there. But we should be conscious about it, and those are the things we do think about. So that's a good comment. And then as far as timeframes go, and I know you're on the EDAB, we actually do have a calendar and the dates, and the whole work plan actually specifically has the dates, and we routinely update those dates. And so I apologize that I didn't provide what those outside dates for some of these completions are at the council, but I'll make sure I do that from now on.
Could I make a comment on it monthly? Could we have a list of where all these permits that we are responsible, the town, where are they? When are we issuing them to move this project along? Have the wash permits all been issued? Where are we on the, water line? I don't think it's asking a lot for the council to know exactly what the town is producing, so we don't have the developers saying to us, well, we're waiting for CJ to sign off on something, or we're waiting for Carefree Water, which we do own. It is ours to
Yeah, I
sign
think
off.
when there's significant milestones on those things, we
Yeah.
can certainly share those.
Yeah, I think it's a
Yes,
great idea.
very fair.
And that's talking about the bargain terms. Those are the things that we've agreed to and they've agreed to. I think that's very appropriate.
Go ahead, Janet Vivas.
Good evening, Council. Question for Steve. Steve, you mentioned that if Diversified doesn't meet their goals, or that they would have to pay a fee. what is that fee? How much would they have to pay if they don't meet the guidelines that they're supposed to meet?
Yeah, so the fees that they're supposed to be paying, so we did a fee waiver as part of the deal. So the fees that they would generally pay for other plan review fees, and those fees are being waived right now. If they don't deliver, they owe us that money.
And what is that money?
I don't know what the total amounts are. I haven't been calculating what they've paid to date, but it would be whatever they paid, yeah.
Okay, I also have a second question. The town bought into a program some time ago, and it was to have influencers bring people into the town, and I'd like to know how that's going. I believe it was $10,000 or something like that the town paid?
So I'll defer to you, Kevin Fitzgibbons, the attorney. So is this fair game to talk about? It seems like it's a different subject to me. Yeah, so I think, so it's a good question, I get it, but I think we'll have to, legally, we can't take this on.
Okay,
this
thank you.
time. But after this meeting, you talk to Madison, and she's got her hand up, she can answer you. Yeah, John Trainer.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John Trainer, Carefree resident. I just want to make an analogy because I heard a lot about how great this developer is, how many projects, thousands of projects they've done, how many hundreds of millions of dollars they've done. The analogy I'll make is there was a point in time where this town went at individual people and cited them for lack of compliance for this issue or that issue. And then it turned out that the target individual found dozens of exactly similar situations. And when that was brought to the attention of the town leadership, their response was, we don't care about all of those, we just care about yours. So I'll say the same thing about the developer. I don't care personally how many successful projects they've done. I don't care how many hundreds of millions of dollars they've made. All I care about is what they do for Carefree. Somebody has got to be on the line for that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any others? Okay, so thank you. We'll close the public comments, and we'll close this agenda item. Unless there's any comments or questions before the council, before we do that. So hearing none, so thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, next up, call to the public. Do we have any call to the public?
Again, Mayor, I'd ask you to please ask if anyone,
Please, say again, please.
please ask anyone to come up to the podium. I'll note their name for them,
Okay,
as
so
the
if anyone
speaker
would like
cards
to
were not in
speak
the
a call
correct
to the
place.
public, you're most welcome. Sure? Okay, come on up.
Sorry, I forgot to make this comment. I wanted to make it earlier. You know, we talked about where the town hall / town administration ought to go. I have a suggestion, and none of you may like it, but since we have the northeast corner development that everybody's trying to figure out who the tenants are or aren't going to be, that would be a good place for town administration. You know, because one of those parcels is designed to be developed as a commercial parcel. I'm sure there's going to be adequate space for town administration. And my personal opinion has always been that what you want to do is you want to use interior space, whether it's this town core or another, for the best and highest use in terms of the retail that comes back. Government functions aren't the best and highest use, whether it's in Carefree, whether it's anywhere else. So it's just a comment.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, so that'll close call to the public, and now we entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so good discussion tonight, thank you.
Yeah, I'll show you in a minute. It's really cool.